All right, guys, we are on patch 2.6. These are the notes. My hair is so long now, bloody hell. Let's break them down in a bit more detail. So, patch 2.6 has got a lot in it. It's got champions, it's got rework, it's got a new game mode, it's got new currency. But I'll tell you what it doesn't have. A link to G2A, which you can find in the description below. Thanks for sponsoring the channel. That was way smoother than I've done it in any other previous videos. So G2A, you can bump the bucks. Okay, right. Kale. She looks kind of. I think Kale looks kind of weird in wildrift. Is this what Kale looks like on PC? Wait, I'm going to compare, guys. I'm going to compare. No, Kale's very much. Wait, you can't even see that because of. Wait a second. Wait a second. It's because I've cropped the. It's because I've cropped the screen and you can't see it. Let's go on here. Okay, so Kale has got her helmet on and her shoulders covered in normal wildrift. Okay, sorry, in normal League of Legends. So this is kind of like an unmasked Kale, definitely looking a little bit like sexier, you know, but still cool. Still got lots of armor. Still looks a bit badass, so that's cool. So I'll talk about Kale in the individual video. I'm not going to go into too much detail about Kale and Morgana, but they are sisters, essentially angel and demon, like age-old trope. Morgana is a support primarily, but can be played mid. Has more recently in League of Legends been played in the jungle as well. Whereas Kale is very much pretty like a Baron laner or potentially a mid laner, but that's about it. Morgana's cool though. She's kind of like a much needed addition. She has a shield that can block ability effects. And so I think she's a really nice addition because it's going to make AD carries feel a lot safer having a potential Morgana on board. Plus, she's really, really disruptive in team fights. And also, when you play Morgana, you're playing an enchanter that feels like you've actually got some. I'm gonna phrase it like this. She's a better Lux, in my opinion. Like you have the same feeling as playing Lux. You know, you've got that same kind of feeling of having impact as an enchanter. But she's just a better Lux. That's my personal opinion, anyway. As a support. Mundo's getting reworked. We'll go through his rework tomorrow as well. We've got quite a lot to do tomorrow. We've got Kale, Morgana, and the Mundo rework. Very much looking forward to the Mundo rework. I think it was a great success on the PC. Sorry if my speech is a little bit crap today. I've got like one of those insane migraines that's like going all the way around your head, like a band headache, and it's just making me feel like I can't talk. But I need to get this video done because it's important. But yes, I think Mundo's going to be a cool visual and also gameplay update. Plus, he just looks way cooler like this, in my opinion. I think much more reflective of Zorn, especially given the arcane thematics that we've got going on. So I really think Mundo's pretty cool. Very much like that. Champ select. We've been moving up to 5 bans. Here is my ban list: Zed, Katarina, Lee Sin, maybe Fiora. And Yasuo. There you go. That's my ban list. What's your ban list? That's my comment's going to be. If your 5 prime bans in your Wild Rift rank games, what would they be? If you could ban the same champions every game, I might switch out Fiora for Caitlyn. Actually, Caitlyn is obnoxious. This is something I'm pretty hyped about, by the way. The ranked reward changes. You're going to get a separate kind of like almost like it's like a season pass basically, and you get cosmetics and stuff to kind of unlock as you go throughout the season. And I think you need to play a certain amount of ranked games and gain a certain amount of ranked points to actually unlock the skin, which I think it means that you can I think you need to get to gold or above, and I think you also need to get a certain amount of like ranked games under your belt to actually get the skin. I'm not sure, I'm not 100% certain on that, but I think it's pretty cool. And also you can earn these new currencies like ranked tokens or something, or ranked coins, and it allows you to buy cosmetics and previous triumphant skins if you weren't able to get them, which is actually really cool. And I think in general, a really nice change. I get the impression that this change is coming through to encourage more people to play ranked. I don't know. I'm not at Riot, so I don't know what the data says. But my impression is they've got a lot of people that are playing like ARAMs. There's probably a good amount of people that are playing normals, but they want more people to play ranked because, again, I think they want to increase the population in ranked. This is just a way of encouraging people to play ranked. So you get a better population in the ranked queue, and also eventually, hopefully, get people move up the ranked ladder and become sort of able to make matchmaking a little bit better. That's my opinion anyway. I'm not sure how accurate that is. But it just gets I get the impression if you're going to develop something specifically to get people to play ranked, because League of Legends has never had this problem on the PC version, my impression is that you just want more people to try and engage with the ranked queue compared to the other offerings that are on in Wild Rift. Which is weird because they're also bringing out Earth, which is actually going to be really interesting. Ranked Season 4 launches on December the 5th at 3 o'clock in the morning. So get to your desired ranked. I'm definitely not hitting Challenger this season. I'm going to be very happy sitting at Grandmaster. Got a new Wild Pass with Shyvana. I don't know. I think the choice of champions for the Wild Pass has been a bit memes. But maybe people do like playing stuff like Shyvana. My impression is that the stuff that gets picked has got to be stuff that people play often. So they've got to be popular champions, because they would not pick unpopular champions to have as the Wild Pass like skin reward, because otherwise no one would really buy the Wild Pass. Do that many people really play Teemo? Maybe Teemo is really highly played. I just don't know. Got a new player mode, which is cool. I think, obviously there's this whole Arcane appealing to the sort of the wider gaming fan base, and therefore, maybe getting people into the League of Legends ecosystem, and then they might want to play. So there's a new way to engage new players with the mode. Ultra Rapid Fire, absolutely going to be my most played game mode in this next patch, because I am so excited. Okay. I'll caveat that. Ultra Rapid Fire gets a little bit boring, like once you've played it like 10 times in a row, but it is a fun game mode, and it's something that you can relax in. It's definitely a really good party game mode, so I think that's going to be fun. We've got some skins: Arcane Vi, Arcane Jinx, blah, 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 Crystal Rose, blah, blah, blah. Who cares about skins? These, I'm going to do a quick flyby of the cosmetic rewards that you're going to get. These are the, what's that there? Is this emotes? Ranked emotes? Ah, yeah. You're getting ranked emotes. That's actually hella cool. I really like that we're getting the ranked emotes. That's awesome. You can flex your challenger rank a bit more in games. Who cares about events? I mean, the guys obviously put a lot of work into events, but I'm just not one of those people that engages with events other than just clicking the buttons. This is a question for you guys as well. 2 questions. Do you engage with the events? Like, do you read all the shit, and do you understand what's going on in these lore events? Because for me, it's just clicking buttons to get rewards. That's why I like events. It's more rewards, and I just like clicking things that are shiny. What do you guys think? I'd love to know, actually. That's a really interesting question. Hextech Mayhem as well, because there is that rhythm game. I'm not sure if that's on phone, though. Is that Hextech Mayhem game on phone? If it is, I might actually play it, because that'd be pretty cool. So, champion changes. We're 8 minutes into the video. We've only got champion changes. Amumu. So, this is a big one. Getting a base health nerf and a base mana regeneration nerf. However, Bandage Toss now can store up to 2 stacks with a recharge time. So over 30 seconds or so, you can store up to 2 stacks of Bandage Toss. The mana cost is coming down, and the cooldown between casts is going to 3 seconds. So basically, he's getting a double individual lockdown, or a double gap closer. The base damage is going down to compensate, though, obviously, as you'd expect. His second ability, which is his crying, his base damage is going up, but the percentage damage is going down. His tantrum slow ratio, which is his third ability, is going down, and the Curse of the Sad Mummy effect range is being reduced, and the stun duration is also 1.5 seconds at all ranks. So, this change did happen on the PC version, and it made Amumu a support. Not always a support, but it did kind of encourage people to play Amumu support, because he has a double gap closer, which is nice in the support role. Will Amumu get played as support here? Difficult to tell. Mainly because we don't have support items in this game, so therefore you don't have those extra items that are there to help gold generation and makes you a bit tanky in the early game. However, I think it could be a potential support on the new patch, because that double gap close is really nice for setting up fights in the bot lane. Keep your eyes on Amumu. He could be a support. How do I think this affects his jungle? It's an overall jungle nerf, but you do have an increased gank potential with the double bandage toss, right? So you can bandage toss, try and force the flash, bandage toss again on the flash. However, don't get it twisted. That is a really boomer phrase. Sorry. You're looking at an overall nerf to Amumu's capabilities realistically. Like they've nerfed plenty. Like the rest of his kit has been nerfed. Well, Despair's flat damage going up is nice, right? But a lot of his kit has been nerfed to compensate that he's now going to have 2 gap closing lockdowns. In general, his jungle clear speed, etc., and in general, his overall capabilities is getting nerfed, but they're loading some power onto his first ability. We'll see how it affects his jungle, but obviously this could open up him as a support, like I said. Might even make him a Baron laner, like with a double bandage toss. Could be interesting. Keep your eyes on it. Base attack damage buff for Ashe. That 6 base attack damage is actually a relatively nice buff. So it might make her a bit more powerful with volley in the laning phase. Do I think it's going to suddenly make Ashe meta? Probably not. This has got to be... I'm really sad about this nerf, actually. Like, Ace in the hole base damage is pretty high. Don't get me wrong. 750 on an ability is pretty nutty for base damage. Like, they've knocked that down by 250, which is a... Like, if you look in the world of their base damage nerfs that they've done on this game, I would wager that a 250 base damage nerf might be, or rather it's 200, sorry, I didn't read properly, but regardless, a 200 base damage nerf to an ability damage, it might be in the realms of the biggest base damage nerf they've ever done on an ability. Don't get me wrong, I think Ace in the Hole did have a high base damage, but Caitlyn's obnoxiousness is just... It's more in her laning phase right now. She's really obnoxious in the lane, but she's designed to be obnoxious in the laning phase. But what you are finding, I think what more people are finding, is that it's not that hard to get Caitlyn to late game right now. And so, like, it's very easy for Caitlyn to become super powerful in the game. I think I might have underrated her on the last tier list, but a lot of people do like Caitlyn at this point in time. Gragas is getting a buff. He's getting a maximum monster damage to his drunken range, which is going to essentially make him, like, a little better in the jungle. And his explosive cask damage is getting buffed in the early game and not in the late game. Do I think this is going to suddenly make him good? Well, he's already okay. Like, Gragas is already okay. This is just going to help him in the jungle. It doesn't really help him in many of his other lanes. Like, 50 base damage on his ult at the first level is not a massive impact. But, extra clear speed for Gragas in the jungle. I think opening up jungle options is nice. I also think Gragas is a good Lee Sin counter, so having Gragas as an option versus Lee Sin is always a good option. And this will just help his clear speed a bit. Graves is getting a base critical strike damage multiplier nerf, and his quick draw cooldown's coming down. 10%. It's not a huge amount. Like, it obviously will impact Graves' damage. Is it going to be enough to make Graves not meta? Difficult to tell. I think these are small changes, and they're obviously designing to just tweak him slightly. The problem is that I think Graves in solo queue was never as good as some of the heavy ganking junglers like Kha'Zix and Lee Sin anyway. So this is more maybe tailored towards competitive, because he was very highly sort of prioritized in things like the Horizon Cup. This will nerf him, but it's not going to make him not meta. Like, they're not nerfing him so he's going to be useless. He's still going to be a good pick. Don't get me wrong. He'll still be a good pick. Irelia is getting a nerf on her passive to stop her early all-in. So basically her level 2 all-in was very strong. So they're just nerfing the on-hit damage ever so slightly, which is okay. I think her level 2 all-in was really strong, and I think her passive was too easy to stack up and too easy to abuse in the laning phase. But it is only a small amount of on-hit damage, but you do have to remember that the on-hit damage does scale up. So you're losing 4 at all ranks. So over the course of 5 basic attacks, you've lost 20 damage. So, I mean, that's not a huge amount, realistically, right? Like, 20 damage is not a huge amount, and you also have to remember that it's, I think it's magic damage on hit, right? So you have to just remember that that's going to get reduced anyway when people have got magic resist. So, this is the difference between, I'll put it in context. You level 2 all in someone. This is the difference between them surviving with 5 HP and them not surviving with 5 HP. That's the best way of putting it in context. It's not a massive nerf. It's definitely hurting her more in the early game than it is in the late game. Obviously, because 4 damage means less in the late game. But, I think 20 health over 5 basic attacks. Usually, you're not weaving in more than 5 or 6 basic attacks and you're going for a level 2 all-in on the Irelia anyway. And most of her damage is coming from her first ability regardless. And this is a fix to her tooltip on her ult. Jace is actually getting a rather large set of buffs. He's getting an AD per level increase of about 1. He's getting a base armor increase. His To the Skies and Shock Blast, which is where he jumps with his hammer and also shoots out the little thing with his gun, are getting base damage buffs across the board, mostly in the late game though. And the effect radius on his To the Skies hammer is going up by about 10%. So, you're getting a 10% radius increase, which is quite nice. He is getting a mana regeneration from his second ability when you're in hammer form, and also the Thundering Blow acceleration gate. So the acceleration gate, when you fire a shock blast through acceleration gate, it increases the damage. It's getting up a 10% increase modifier. These are enough, I think, to make Jace much more playable. I don't think Jace is particularly playable on the last patch. So I think these are enough to potentially make him more playable. We'll have to see. Base damage buff in the late game, plus an acceleration gate buff, definitely makes Jace's lethality poke build quite nice. I'm going to have to test him out on the next patch, but these are obviously a large set of buffs, especially with the AD base buff as well. It's like 15 AD over the course of the game. It's pretty nice. I'm pretty excited about this. This might make Jace more viable. Basically, they're rerouting power from Kennan's second ability into his first ability. That's all you can say. It's making him slightly harder to apply damage with Kennan, slightly less of an annoyance in the laning phase. But it also means they're limiting his AoE damage, because obviously what you'd do is you'd use your ultimate and then you'd use electrical surge afterwards. They're moving that over to single target damage, so they're actually reducing his damage in team fights realistically, but trying to buff that by compensating and saying, well, you can have a bit more damage on single target. But they're only giving him 5 extra damage than they're taking away, so it's a bit of a nerf to Kennan's team fight capabilities for certain. And I still think Kennan was a bit of a fringe pick anyway. Like, I don't think Kennan's in a particularly strong place regardless. Maybe he is in low elo, but I wouldn't say that many high elo players are like picking Kennan a lot, realistically. Misfortune. We're going to give her base movement speed on her second ability so she can roam a bit more. It's interesting because obviously AD carries don't do a significant amount of roaming, but it does mean that Misfortune might be able to get to like neutral objective fights more quickly, which is pretty cool. And they're also increasing the bullet time AD and AP ratio. Obviously, AP ratio doesn't really matter because AD ratio is obviously what you build as Misfortune. No one really plays AP Misfortune. But 10% AD ratio on bullet time is a pretty big deal, and actually will really impact her teamfight capabilities. So maybe we see Misfortune kind of make her way back in a little bit. She was super popular in Season 0 and then has kind of fallen off the cliff since they nerfed her double up damage a while back. Consume is getting a second increase at all ranks. It's impacting his sustain. It's a little bit impacting his clear speed, but 1 second. It's not a deal breaker, is it really? It's not a massive deal breaker. Nunu will still have his place. Like I've said before, and I'll say it again, there are not many good tanky jungles in the meta. Very, very few good tanks in the jungle role right now. Jarvan, who generally goes a bit of both. But Nunu and maybe Dr. Mundo now might be like good tank options in the jungle. But like Amumu sucks, Ramos kind of sucks. Like there aren't many good tank options. And so Nunu's like one of the good remaining tank options. I don't think he's going to go away with a 1 second consume nerf. Senna's actually getting a buff. Senna's hard to play, right? So for like across all elos, I imagine that Senna's not getting a ridiculously high win rate because she is quite hard to play. But they're giving her an alt missile speed increase. This is just to allow her cross-map plays to have more impact, which I like because that is supposed to be a big, impactful cross-map ability, and it does feel like it takes too long to get there. They're almost doubling the speed of the missile, which is pretty cool. So I don't think it's massively going to change Senna's capabilities, because how often did you make a cross-map ult and it made the difference, right? But it's just a nice little quality of life upgrade for Senna. Soraka's heal is getting a 10 increase every rank. It's not going to change where Soraka is. Maybe the new items will, which we'll talk about in a moment, but it's not really going to change where Soraka is, in my opinion. I think Soraka is okay, and I think she's a little weak because there's some good engaged supports in the meta right now. Also, the fact that she chunks so much of her own health to heal people is a bit grim, and 10 extra healing is not going to make the difference there. TF getting a nerf, interestingly enough. He's getting a base health per level nerf, a base health nerf of about 140 overall, which actually in the late game is quite a decent amount of health. 140 is a significant nerf, so you have to pay attention to that, because that's like 1 extra basic attack sometimes from an AD carry, which can definitely make the difference, maybe 2. Pick a card cooldown is going up in the early game and then up at all ranks. And they're actually nerfing teleport range of his Destiny ability by over 10%. Almost 20% nerf on his teleport range on his Destiny gate. What I would have much preferred to see from them is actually put this as the rank 1 and then scale it up to 5,000. But these are some pretty chunky nerfs. Like, you're going to have to walk a significantly further distance to impact with your ult right now. And I don't know. I mean, that might be enough to knock TF out of the mid lane meta. Like, what made TF good was his ability to respond to cross-map plays pretty quickly. And honestly, the pick a card 2-second cooldown nerf in the early game is pretty huge because you usually level wild card first. Wild cards first. And so this is your second level. So you're actually going to be stuck with a 2-second cooldown increase for a significant amount of the game. So this is probably enough to kind of knock TF out of the meta a little bit, in my opinion. I think he'll definitely be a lot less strong. Veigar sucks, and they are realizing that Veigar sucks. So he's getting the magic 40 base health increase. A bit of a base armor increase, which is nice because things like Zed and Yasuo kind of crap on him. He's getting a base damage increase to Dark Matter by 20 in the early game, which is going to help you just clear waves and set up your farming a bit better. And they're also increasing his ult damage at all ranks. Again, more in the early game. He does suck early game. So, I mean, he doesn't really need much help late game because Veigar's supposed to be a stacking late game carry, but he does suck early game. So 20 damage buff and a 15 damage buff in the early game, it's nice. It's not a deal breaker, and I think Veigar's still gonna always be that Nasus type champion where you're just stacking and stacking and stacking until you get strong enough to play the game. But these are some good quality of life increases just to help his laning phase, which is already very weak, right? He's got a really weak laning phase. Don't think it's going to suddenly make him ridiculously meta. So, Zaya is getting a base attack. They've taken Zaya's base attack damage and they've given it to Ashe. And now Ashe and Zaya, I think, are at the same base attack damage. They're also increasing the cooldown on her Deadly Plumage ability, which is the attack speed increase. But it's actually, in the late game, a 3-second increase, which is a pretty significant chunk. Stuart's in shambles right now. But then Zaya did have like 3 patches of just consistent buffs. So this probably just brings her down. I didn't think Zaya was a top tier AD carry anyway. And this is going to still put her in the realms of she's okay. You pick Zaya when there's lots of crowd control. You pick Zaya when there are assassins and stuff, but you're not going to randomly pick her otherwise. There are just better AD carries. Xin Zhao has been sucking because no one's picked him. He's getting an armor per level increase, which is a 6 armor increase overall and a base HP buff. Cool. Survive the jungle a little bit better. Bit tankier mid game. You love to see it, but Xin Zhao's probably going to be. He's still. I think Xin Zhao's still like moderately good, right? I'll probably see Doom suddenly pop up and start spamming the crap out of Xin Zhao this patch, but I'll let you know if he gets really good. Like in general, when they do base changes, it's very difficult to predict how good they're going to be. But Xin Zhao giving him extra HP and extra armor is always a good thing, right? So I think that's nice. Zed is getting a nerf, and I'm so glad about this. But when I read it, I was like, "Is that it?" That's what I said when I read this. I was like, "Is that it?" Zed is getting a new item which is going to be obnoxiously good on him, and all you're giving him is a slight armor reduction, which who cares because he doesn't really face many other AD matchups in the laning phase. And a 10 shuriken, but like a 10 damage shuriken nerf. I know that kind of doubles up with his shadow, but a 10 damage shuriken nerf? It's not enough. He's still on my ban list. Still on my ban list. Fuck this champion, man. This champion is so dumb. I hate it. However, a champion that has been dumb for a long time, especially in competitive, Ziggs, he is getting a rather large nerf. Getting again the Twisted Fate treatment. They're both getting 140 health nerf in the late game. His base mana is being reduced by 45. And then when you look at Bouncing Bomb, they're increasing the mana on Bouncing Bomb, and they're increasing the cooldown on Mega Inferno Bomb by 15 seconds at all ranks. But the Bouncing Bomb mana increase alongside the base mana reduction, you're going to get 1 less Bouncing Bomb in the laning phase. And that, for any Ziggs players, you will know, will hurt. Because Ziggs is all about just clearing the waves as quickly as possible until you get up towards like a, your Ludens or whatever item that you're going for, right? And then he's getting a Mega Inferno ult cooldown nerf because that was off cooldown like every 2 seconds. remains to be seen. Like, it makes him much easier to kill, that's for certain. And I think obviously it disrupts his early laning phase, but is this going to impact his late game, which is already really strong? Is it going to impact his ability to take towers, which is still very good? Who knows? But it is a strong set of nerfs. So we'll have to play him and see, but my impression is he might drop from S+ to maybe S or A, depending on how bad these health nerfs are for the late game. But the fact that he's so good at taking towers, you might still see him in competitive. That's what I would say. That's what I'd caveat. He's just like, he's not taken for his laning phase in competitive. He's taken because he takes towers and melts them like butter. But the base mana nerf is a pretty significant deal, given that they're buffing, and so they're also nerfing the mana cost and bouncing bomb, right? Last time I did this, Rogue Fool messaged me and he's like, I'm sad that you didn't care about my ARAM changes. So, Rogue Fool, just for you, I also don't care about your ARAM changes. I don't care about ARAM changes, I'm sorry. It's ARAMs. You just play them for fun. I don't care about the balance. Maybe there are some people out there that are like hardcore ARAM players, right? And they really care about the balance, but not for me. Not for me. Banshee's Veil. You might remember me saying I've wanted this item in the game for a long time. It's going to be 3,000 gold, builds from Rod and Negatron Cloak. You're going to get 70 AP from it. That's a pretty nice bit of AP from Banshee's Veil. 40 magic resist with a bit of ability haste, which is super nice. And then you're going to get a spell shield that blocks the next enemy ability. I need to know what the cooldown on that spell shield is in Wildrift, because that would help me judge how good this item's going to be. I think this is a really nice item for AP carries. It gives you another way to escape ultimates like Zeds if you block it. It gives you another way to stop getting caught out by CC. It's got a good amount of AP on it. There aren't that many other good options, I would say, especially because we're going to see some nerfs on some other core items down the line, down these notes. Love it. Think it's a great item, great addition. Hate it. Think this is an awful addition. Don't need any more good items for AD Assassins, but seriously, it's basically AD Banshee's Veil. Serrated Dirk and Jeram's Fist, 250 health, 50 attack damage, which is a nice amount of attack damage. Grants a spell shield that blocks the next ability, and it also gives you 10 armor penetration. It's a no-brainer for most people like Zed, right? It's a no-brainer for Zed. It's a no-brainer for other sort of lethality-based carries. No-brainer for Pantheons if you're going lethality. It's a banger item that allows you to survive in team fights a little bit more effectively, and yeah, it's going to be a staple item for lethality AD carry, like lethality builds. Probably see it on Varus as well. Great item for Varus, right? And he was already pretty strong. Hextech Mega Drive. This is a wildrift exclusive item, and this is something that I've never seen before in League of Legends. It builds from Lost Chapter and Giant's Belt. It gives you 300 health, 200 mana, 35 ability power, 15 ability haste. Reduces the cooldown of your active items by 10% with a 5-second cooldown if you're healing them, and by 15% if you're immobilizing your enemies. This sounds like an awesome Rakan item, by the way. Really cool Rakan item, because you've got both a heal and a knock-up in your kit. I think I'm building this on Rakan. Like, I think I'm actually building this on Rakan. And I think I'm actually building it instead of Rod of Ages now, because this is giving me a bit of ability, health, mana. It gives me a bit of all of that kind of stuff. It's cheap. I like this on Rakan. It seems like a really cool Rakan edition. But also because, again, you're CCing people, it's okay for stuff like Leona. Like, it's pretty good for stuff like Leona. Obviously, it's a pretty solid item if you're thinking about enchanters as well. But what I would say is this item better? Because it's a 5-second cooldown. Is this item better than, like, harmonic echoes? And, you know, like, those items that are already quite core to, like, healing enchanters, right? What I do want to find out is if you're Nami and you hit everyone with your wave. So let's say that you use Spooky Ghosts. You hit the entire enemy team with your wave, which gives you a 75% cooldown on Spooky Ghosts, and then you heal someone. Have you basically got Spooky Ghosts off cooldown? Or let's say you start a fight with Redemption, you wave the entire enemy team, you bubble someone, you heal someone. Have you got Redemption back straight away? That's what I want to know. Like, the one thing though is that obviously there's the thing about like you can't like double items. It's like that internal cooldown about how effective Redemption and Locket are if you use them twice in a row. So that's what I'm concerned about here. Like like let's say you have redemption and you do all this great stuff with Hextech Mega Drive to make your redemption happen again. Are you just like not going to get a good heal off because people already have that internal cooldown timer on redemption? That's a good question, right? Because that just makes this kind of pointless. Because the only way I see this being built, right, is like with redemption or lock it, and you want to cycle 2 of them in a fight like really quickly. Because otherwise, like who cares about reducing active item cooldowns in between fights? Because you don't, right? Because at the end of the day, you're going to have most people have that cooldown back available, unless we're thinking about stasis, which sometimes needs a bit longer. But or maybe you know, like also gargoyles. Like let's say you build it on like an AP carry that uses gargoyles enchant or stoneplate enchant, and you don't get to cycle that twice in a fight. Like I don't know. Need to ask, begs the question: can you use redemption and have it being just as effective twice in one fight, and lock it and have it be just as effective twice in one fight? That's the real question for me, to be honest with you. Because if you can't, then I don't see the point in this item, because otherwise I don't really care about reducing the cooldown of my active item in between fights, because it was already up most of the times when I needed it anyway. I could never really think of a time where I was like, oh damn, I don't have redemption right now, or oh damn, my locket's not up. That's the burning question that I have about this particular item. Really funky item. Ixtali Seed Jar. It's 2,500. It builds from Chain Vest and Negatron Cloak. Gives you 45 armor and magic resist. So you just get armor and magic resist from this, but it is a relatively cheap item. When you and an ally hit a nearby plant, it drops a seed that only you can see. You can pick up and replant that seed at any location on the map, and it gives you 5% movement speed. This is a meme item. I will tell you now, 2,500 gold on this is a meme item, because you can pick up a bloom, you can pick up a blast cone, or I guess you can pick up a honey fruit. Maybe I see the value of this in the laning phase with honey fruit, but by the time you spend 2,500 gold, that's irrelevant. Scrya's bloom, you might get an option to see someone doing an objective, or you can like spy someone out, but Scrya's blooms are more like luxury rather than necessity. And when I saw the item being advertised in the dev diary, they set a blast cone up and they blasted over all and went for a gank. But how often are you going to do that and actually make this relevant? Also, I don't know what the internal cooldown on picking up the plant is, right? But again, this is a meme item. It is not going to be. Look, I don't know, maybe I shouldn't say it like so, because it might become massively stable, but with only 45 armor and magic resist and a completely meme passive, I don't really see this being built. If it came with some health, cool, and they increased the cost of it and made it more in line with other items, but it's only armor and magic resist. And if I'm getting an item that's only got... I can go for Zeke's Convergence and get armor, magic resist and a bit of extra and have a much more useful passive, right? So this just feels like a massive meme item to me. Rod of Ages is getting nerfed. Not anything massive in terms of like its actual stats, but it's reducing the rate at which it stacks. So it now takes 7.5 minutes to stack. It takes 50% longer to stack Rod of Ages. So saying that you get this at about 4 minutes at best, most people get this just before the first objective fights. You are now stacking it at 11.5 minutes rather than 9. That is a big deal, honestly. That is a relatively big deal. Do I think this to me will still be the go-to item for people like Galio, for instance, who doesn't really have a good option for a first item outside of this because it provides the stats that he needs. But a lot of people rushed Rod of Ages when they probably could have, or it wasn't like an item that truly made sense for them. It was also an indirect nerf to the supports that go Rod of Ages as well. So do I think this is going to be enough to knock Rod of Ages out of being like a tier 1 item as first item? Probably, but obviously it depends, because a lot of games go to about 30 minutes, but it just depends on like how much those extra stacks, those 1 or 2 stacks that you're missing at like 7 minutes or 8 minutes make in terms of like your ability to take people down. But this, like, I would say 2.5 minutes is a relatively long amount of time in wildrift, so that is a relatively hefty decrease in sort of how quickly you're getting those stacks, or increase rather, in how quickly you're getting those stacks. So it'll still be first item for stuff like Galio, but like TF, for instance, might shy away from it because it now takes a little bit longer to put, to get you online with that. But it'll still be, if you're playing like a tanky mage, Galio, sometimes like Malphite, is still going to be the go-to item, I think. Font of Life is getting changed. The mark duration is going down to 3 seconds, and the cooldown is going up by 2 seconds for both melee and for ranged champions. So basically, they are making it more difficult to proc, and also making it less frequently procced. Still think it will be the go-to for some supports like Braum, because he doesn't have a better option right now. But in general, I would say it's a relatively warranted nerf because Font of Life was really good. But it will still be the go-to pick for some supports. But now those ones that were making the choice between Airy and Font of Life might now consider like Airy a better option. Nami might still stick with Font of Life because I think obviously she can proc it more easily with some of her kit. But, you know, there is now more of a distinction between Summon Airy and Font of Life. And stuff. You guys can read this stuff. I'm already gone too long. Upgraded intentional losing detection and penalties. What does that mean, though? Cool. That was a long one. Cheers, boys. See you on the Rift.